Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast or Rams Talk Depression Cast after yesterday. Pretty horrible game against Leeds United. It really was. I mean, I was one of the unlucky 3,000 or so that went to the game, and I mean, it felt like we didn't even try and win the game. I mean, Paul Warne basically said that himself, didn't he? But we've got a lot to talk about today. There's supposed to be three of us. Vic's a man over the age of 30 trying to use technology, so who knows when he'll turn up. But we've got Callum Boocock here for now. How are you, Cal?
I'm all right. I mean, I don't blame any lads. This is probably the one game they probably don't want to dissect, so I don't blame them whatsoever for not coming on tonight.
Yeah, well, it's weird, isn't it? Because game-wise, there's not really a lot to say, because not really a lot happened. I mean, I've got notes that we always have a set of notes, don't we, that we come up with before the episode to sort of talk through. And this one is incredibly sparse, the one I'm looking at the minute. Actually, talking about the actual game itself, I've got 3 bullet points, which I think says a lot. But if you are watching live, please do leave your comments on what you think, and we'll get onto them when we get to those topics as well. I'll keep my eye on them. So, I mean, Cal, Leeds, we lost 2-0, right? 1 shot on target. I can't remember how many shots we had. Probably 2 if you count the header. Three? There definitely weren't 3. I'm going to go with 2 because there was a header in the second half that went about 40 yards wide that I think we can count. The only shot on target being Thompson from about 30 yards, which Meslier just caught. I mean, we weren't expecting anything, were we? Let's be real. We were never going to expect something from the game against Leeds. Ellen Rose, they've only lost 1 game there all season. That was to fellow promotion chasers Burnley. But I think we expected more than we got, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, there's a realisation piece where at the end of the day, no one expects us to go and beat a Leeds, especially with the money that they've got, the squad they've got, and at the end of the day, we're competing for 2 different things this season. We're competing to stay in the division. They're competing to get out the division, aren't they? So, I mean, from our perspective, we just needed to go there and give a good account of ourselves and see what we can do. But from our perspective, we didn't do that. We didn't go and give a good account of ourselves. We weren't in the game whatsoever. I put a post out yesterday saying that if you were doing like a tail of the tape, every single stat was against us. I mean, the one stat on the one app I was looking at was the big chance miss. They had 1 big chance miss. We had none. We actually won that stat.
Yes! Come on!
But like you said, you've got 3,000 Derby fans going and paying the money that they've done, and travel, the cost of the tickets nowadays, and the minimum you want is your team to go and give the effort, which we don't really question at this season. The team do give a lot of effort, but in the Championship you need more than that, and to at least go and give a good account of ourselves in a football match, and we just didn't do that, did we?
No, we didn't. I mean, we've got a comment from Chris Edwards talking about the players need to take a lot of responsibility, giving away the ball too cheaply, passing poorly, the constant changes to the starting 11 can't be helping. I think it's not just the changes to the starting 11, it's the personnel we actually pick. I mean, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is that actual starting lineup. Now, we knew we were going to miss Ibu Adams, and we did miss Ibu Adams, didn't we? Because I think there were times when they sort of cut through our midfield quite easily. What didn't help us was that we played a 2-man midfield. Now, Thompson and Osborne ran. I thought they both had fairly decent games. Thompson especially, I think this whole run we've been on, I think Tomo is one of the few players that could really hold their head high, because he worked his socks off yesterday. And that's why I wanted to put him in the thumbnail of this, because he really worked hard. He won the ball back so many times. He was the only player that looked forward and actually wanted to do something with it. And I feel really sorry for him, and I feel really sorry for the players that had to deal with the system that we played, because playing it was a 3-4-3, wasn't it, pretty much? But being realistic, having watched it with my own eyes, it was a 5-3-3, 5-2-3, 5-2-3. God, that'd be a lot of players, isn't it? 5-2-3. Why did we do that? Because we had no intention of hitting them on the break whatsoever. I mean, Jackson, we've talked about this a lot this season. We can't hit teams on the break because on the right, we've got Jackson, who can't run with the ball. And on the left, we've got Mendes-Lang, who can't run down the left. He can't do it. He's got the pace over some players. He didn't have the pace over them, especially on his weaker foot. He's never going to create anything on that left side. So it kind of baffled me, Callum. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the actual lineup itself, because again, it felt like we set up to not even get out of our own half.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, on paper, you look at Yates, Mendes-Lang, and Jackson to be that pace, and they were talking about it on the broadcast. If you were watching it, and saying that's what Warne probably was trying to do. But I mean, the trouble is the way how deep we were, and that's one thing you were touching on there, is how deep we have been over the past few games. And the trouble is then it's putting an emphasis on your wide players to take on their men, knock it down the wings, and then obviously Yates being the lone striker up top. But I mean, Mendes-Lang is just not doing that at the moment himself. But out of the two of them, him and Jackson, you probably say he's probably the more likely to beat his man going down the line. But Jackson isn't doing that whatsoever. He's a guy who is void of confidence. I think both of them are, really. But the trouble is then if that's your outlet, then you're not going to really do much. And I mean, you need, like I said, we've been talking about it, that we need a big number 9 or a focal point or anything like that. But I even think that in the kind of the way we set up and the tactical implementation of what Paul Warne was trying to do, I think either having a pace merchant up top like we kind of tried to do, or if we had a target man, we wouldn't have really had much results either way, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think a target man wouldn't have made a difference. I mean, I saw a really funny stat on Twitter yesterday. I can't remember who posted it, so if you're listening, good spot. Jerry Yates had fewer touches than Junior Firpo, who went off in the 20th minute.
Not shocked.
I mean, if that doesn't say everything, I mean, we could have played any of us up front, and we would have probably done the same job that Jerry Yates did, probably covered a few less miles, but we'd have probably done the same and probably had the same amount of opportunities, because we didn't have a single opportunity yesterday. The closest game to a chance was probably Liam Thompson running down the left, and we actually played a nice move towards the end, and Tomo cut it across, and the keeper ended up intercepting the cross, and that was that. That was pretty much all we had. Vic's finally here. Nice of him to turn up. How late are you? 7 minutes, 18 seconds. Hello, mate. How are you, Vic? You all right?
Yeah, I felt a bit like Derby yesterday. Just didn't bother turning up.
I mean, Vic, good man. I just want to, I guess, ask your opinion on the lineup. Myself and Cal were just saying that, it seemed really strange that if we're setting up to hit teams on the break, why use a player on the right that can't run with the ball, who is one of our very few outlets, and play our only player that can run with the ball on the left-hand side, whilst other players that can also run with the ball are all sat on the bench? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And did it make any sense to you?
We're talking about the Mendes-Lang and Jackson debate again, aren't we?
I think we are.
Yeah.
I think we are. I mean, especially against better teams. You know what I mean? It just baffles me. I can't work it out.
See, if I was Paul Warne, I think the excuse I'd come up with is Jackson works hard. Again, I think it's a myth. I don't think he works that hard at all, in my opinion. And he's got he's got a lot of limitations as a footballer. That's just my personal opinion. Putting Mendes out on the left, again, nullifies his strengths. And then it's an uphill battle from there. I thought the team setup yesterday was probably slightly confusing, but at the same time, I thought, especially with the midfield problems we had, as best as it could be. But yeah, it did make sense when you got players like Corey Blackett, Taylor, Barkhausen, who's not actually done too bad when he's come on the bench. You could play on the natural left side. You still persistent with Mendes-Lang, who, by the way, looks a very frustrated figure. I think when you saw him come off with a sub, he went straight down the tunnel, which tells its own story. But yeah, it's just baffling that we seem to do the same things over and over again. It's like Einstein said, if you do the same thing and expect different results, you're insane. And I think I'm pretty sure Paul Warne is now on the borderline of insane if he's going to keep persisting with Mendes on the left, because I've had enough of it.
Yes, tell us what you really think, Vic.
I thought you compared Paul Warne to Einstein, and I was like, one's a genius and known for
the other one's a genius as well, mate. Come on, let's not mess around here. Yeah, I'm kind of with you as well. I think it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I thought when we actually made the changes, I mean, Warne said in his post-match press conference, last 20 minutes, we came to life. There's a reason for that. It's because we brought Kenzo Houdmine, Marcus Harness, and Tom Barkhaven on. And the second those three came on, suddenly we had three players that moved. I mean, one of the things that I put on Twitter straight after the game was talking about Leeds' movement and understanding. Now, the way all of their players moved was so impressive. Most impressive, probably the fullbacks. I mean, Bogle, who I still have no idea why we booed all game when we didn't want to sell him. He didn't particularly want to go. He had to go because otherwise we'd go bust at that point. We had to sell him and Lowe in a deal because, that was the only way. He was one of our only saleable assets. And we booed him all game and he, repaid the favour by having a brilliant game against us. He kept picking up, as Callum would say, pockets of space and he'd get into those spaces. He'd come inside and sit between the midfield and the attack and the midfield and the defence. He just always had space. And we don't do that. We're so limited. We're so one-dimensional. And when we did bring on Barkes and when we did bring on Haldmine, we had a couple of players that were like, let's go for it. Let's do something here. And I thought Haldmine especially looked miles better than every other player on the pitch on the ball, in a Derby shirt, let's add. When he came on, he was picking up the ball and he was spraying passes around and he was moving about, and it just baffles me that he's not played more. And you think if we'd started with him, we might have had a chance on the break. Jackson can't run with the ball, but he can run in behind. So if we're playing him, we need to play someone who can give him the ball. You play Tomo and Osborne. I don't think either of them have ever kicked the ball longer than 20 yards. So how are you going to play a ball in behind for anyone like that if you don't have the players to do it? That's just my view anyway. It's just my view. But Callum, we have to talk about it. I was going to talk about positives first, but we might as well get it out of the way. We've got a comment already saying, do you think the squad's a League One squad? Now, we have to talk about Paul Warne's post-match press conference because it was pretty bizarre. I mean, I was listening to it in the car on the way home in the apparently endless traffic going through Leeds, trying to get out. And he made a couple of comments that I don't particularly like, and I don't really think are beneficial for us. I mean, I watched a thing earlier with Thomas Frank after Brentford won. I think they won yesterday. And he came out and he was bigging up all the players. He said, "We played a really tough team, but you lads were brilliant and you deserved it." And everything you see from so many managers is go out there and do something and get a result. You can do it. You've got the ability. Our managers come out post game and gone, "This team's not even good enough for this league." I mean, after last year saying he'd build a championship team in League One, to come out and say he's got a League One team with sugar on top. I mean, what must those players be thinking, Cal?
I want to know who the sugar is. That's more than anything, to be honest. But it's not. But it's
Jackson.
not. Yeah, but it's not the. I mean, you talk about Paul Warne being the people manager. He's a motivator, and I think I was listening to what Ed and Malcolm Christie were saying after, and listening to what they were saying, to what he said, and you hope he's not saying that in behind closed doors. But then, I'm not being funny, the players are going to listen to that anyway. So it's like, so he has said it, and if I was a player and got told after just fighting my way up out of League One to get into the Championship, this is where he's kind of said, this is where our squad is going to be. Yes, it's going to be the bottom end, but at least they're all Championship quality players, and we're then trying to just build the depth around that. But you're not to say they're a League One team is kind of, after they've just lost to a convincing Leeds. I mean, it's hardly the pick me up you need, especially when you're going to Burnley on Tuesday. I mean, I don't know what the players behind the scenes are thinking, because are they thinking now, like, oh great, the managers think I'm a Division 1 player, like, that's where I belong, but it's all right. There's a couple of bits of sprinkling of Championship stardust that we've got in this team that might keep us up this year. But also for the fans, I mean, like, if you didn't want to be more Marmite with the fan base and kind of have the fans on your back with the results at the moment, we've lost 4 on the bounce. You're trying to get the fans to convince them on supporting the team, and you then go in and saying what the sort of things he said. And I mean, both all of us in the chat and Vic and yourself who were there at the game, after you've just travelled and braved the winds of Storm Dara, I mean, that's not what you want to hear post-match going back to your cars, is it?
It's not. And Vic, do you think it's a bit of an excuse? Do you think this is his way of going, well, actually, 1 win in 10 is expected because my team's not good enough for the league?
See, this is the issue I've got with that. As a manager, I mean, I'm a coach myself, and the first thing you do is protect your players. You don't you don't come out and say things like, "Oh, it's a League One squad." Technically, it's not. We worked our way and fought hard last season to get promotion to be in this league, so we've got every right to be in this position. And this squad, if you're saying it's a League One squad, shouldn't we still be in League One now? Then, technically speaking,
Yeah.
the fact that he's put the players down like that, I'll be honest, the fan base, and rightly so, have pinpointed that. And I've heard some fans have come up to me and said, "Yeah, we have got a League One squad." I disagree completely. I think we've got a championship level squad, not top end, I'd say bottom end championship squad, but we've earned the right to be in the position we're in. And as a manager who supposedly doesn't look like he's been media trained, the first thing you do is you do not put your players out and hang them out to dry, because you're meant to be their leader. They're not going to believe in a manager like that now. If he's turned around and said to the local media, "Oh, it's just a bunch of League One players with sugar on top," you tell me what that does for confidence for players that maybe are confidence-based players, players like Kane Wilson, players like Nathaniel Mendes-Lang. If you're saying that about those sorts of players, Kenzo Houdmine, he's just come from the Dutch league. If he's been told he's a League One standard player, why should he even play for that manager? Do you know what I mean? Like, the first thing you should always do is protect your players. If you're going to say it behind closed doors, by all means do it.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, yeah, the performance was rubbish. It was, but we didn't expect anything going to Leeds. But the minimum requirement we do want is just that the lads try and put 100% effort in and give it a go. Like, it was very easy for them to, up until about 35 minutes, it was very easy for them to sort of cut us open. They could have won 5-6-0 yesterday had it not been for Zetterstrom, let's be honest. But that's the bare minimum we want as a fan. We're all paying 30 odd quid to go to watch him play at Leeds. We know we're not going to win, but we just want to see heart. And to be fair, when you've got a manager saying that they're League One players playing in the Championship, it doesn't bode well, does it? I wouldn't be surprised if David Clowes and Stephen Pearce listen to that and have him in the office for it, because it's bang out of order. Because it's sort of sending shots to them saying, "You need to back me and give me some financial reinforcements." So he's burning a lot of bridges here, and it's hard to sort of be positive about Paul when he's come out and said something like that, because especially when you played against Leeds, we know we're not going to win. But now you said we're going to set up the same way against Burnley. Fans are just not going to pay the money to go. I'd rather watch it on TV, do you know what I mean? Rather than brave the storms and things like that. So he's burning a lot of bridges, and I'm struggling to find where he's going to make this up now. Even if we do stay up, I just think he's lost a lot of the fan base with some of the stuff he's come out with.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, interestingly enough, 5 of the players that started against Leeds were Paul Warne signings. So if he's got a League One squad, why has he signed them?
Exactly.
You know, almost half the team he brought in himself. So, I mean, he brought in himself this summer. You know, these are signings this year. I mean, if you look at the starting level, Zetterstrom he signed, Nelson he signed, Phillips he signed, Osborne, Wilson, Jackson, Yates. You know, only really Mendes-Lang, Fozzie, Cashin, Tomo. They're the only ones that were there before he was here. So if this is a League One standard team, why did you sign them? And he's got players on the bench. I mean, Kenzo Houdmine, like you mentioned, you know, he's played at a good level. He's played in Europe. He's played in the Europa League, you know, and he didn't even start, which, again, still baffles me. You've got Tom Barkhays, and he's had a really good career in the Championship. You know, I think when he's come on recently, he's looked really bright, and he's looked like he can actually create something. Obviously, against Swansea, won the penalty. And Corey Blackett-Taylor, paid 300 grand for Corey Blackett-Taylor, a player that doesn't fit his system, doesn't seem to fit the way he wants to play, and he just sits on the bench game after game. It seems really strange. I think the way we've signed players has confused me a bit, and it seems like we've sort of used our budget in really weird places. Whether that's his decision or not, I don't know. But I am led to believe that Corey Blackett-Taylor was 100% Warne signing, but he doesn't fit any of the way Warne plays. So I don't really understand. I really don't understand. I really want him to succeed. And I'm going to go out on the record and say that I am desperate for him to succeed, because I want Derby to succeed. I would not want a manager to fail, because it would mean the club would fail as well. And any chance we have of staying in the Championship, I'm happy. Even if we have to turn up and watch us sit back and do nothing for 90 minutes and maybe nick a goal, that's fine. But just as long as we stay up and we're in a good position and we can actually build going forwards, at the minute, I'm not seeing progress. I mean, I was chatting to someone earlier about this. Since Ozo's been injured, have you noticed that Zetterstrom's probably not had a good game? I mean, obviously he had a decent game yesterday, made a couple of good saves, but we concede a lot of goals. If you look at all the goals we concede, we've got 4 or 5 players in our own box every time we concede a goal. And that's because we're sitting that deep that teams basically walk in. This is why he's making no saves. And this is why, we conceded so many goals. Is because the chances are usually coming from so close to goal. There's not really a lot you can do about it. When Zetterstrom first came in and, towards the start of the season, we sat higher. We were more positive. We were trying to do things and create things. Whereas now it feels like we've gone back and back and back. And that negativity's come in, hasn't it, Cal? I think it really is negativity. You can see it seeping into the team. I mean, we got comments asking, saying that the team didn't put commitment in from Adam, but I think they did. I think the team really tried. I think the team worked really, really hard. But for me, I think they were just told, don't go forwards, sit in, defend. They put so much into defending. They just didn't have any option going forwards. I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, and I think, as I say, that we're not. I don't think anyone's questioning effort. I don't even think Warne's questioning effort. Like the effort the lads are putting in is there to be seen. That it's just that not. It's been put in the wrong areas, and Warne says I don't know much what we could have done more tactically in his post match. But I'm not. I mean, I could think of several things we could do tactically, and that's not putting 10 men on the box and sitting there for 90 minutes and expecting to get a 0-0 result against a Leeds team who will break you down and end up being broken down from a corner. So I'm like, you're then putting immense pressure on yourselves, and you're putting immense pressure on a Thompson and an Osborne in central midfield. Osborne can barely last 60 minutes at the moment. Thompson is your early 20s, barely got any championship experience, and you're asking them to go up against an informed central midfield of Leeds and saying, can you hold out for 90 minutes, please? And saying to the defence, can you hold out for 90 minutes? And it's going, what tactics are you expecting and what outcome are you expecting when we're putting that sort of output on the pitch? I mean, when we were talking post-game in our group chat, and we've kind of sat there going, oh, where do we go from here? And even just the next game, it's like Burnley. It's for those going, Vic, one of them. If you're still going, Vic.
Unfortunately, yeah.
For those going, you're basically saying this is going to be rinse and repeat. It's going to be exactly the same. We're going to sit there and go for a 0-0 and see what happens. But we know what's going to happen because Burnley really struggle actually breaking people down at home. But so it actually might be a 0-0. But I think it's what our manager is obviously deeming us to be at the moment, and it's the closest I've seen. And as I say, I don't want us to turn into a sack and hire club again. We've done it, we've seen it, we all don't want that. But it's more what we don't want from our manager is, and like I said, this is the closest I've seen to us to being a Rotherham mentality and a small club mentality where you are sat there with 10, 11 men behind the ball, and then saying we're a League One team and this and we're not on the level. The trouble is that is just seeping into the players, and you see it because to get, like I said, to not even lay a glove on them. Like what we say about trying to take the chances, and like, I think the key one was probably Middlesbrough at home. Like at least we had a chance. I know it was from a slip, but it was like. But yesterday there was absolutely nothing for you guys to lay your finger on to even have a cheer about.
Well, actually, we did have a cheer. There were two. There was one when Liam Thompson chipped the ball into Melier's hands, which was very funny, and everyone went crazy. And the other one was when James Collins was brutally cut down from behind and then miraculously recovered once the free kick was given and sprinted into the box for the free kick. That was funny. But I mean, talking about the going forwards, we've not created a big chance in 5 games this season. Now, 2 of those games are Leeds and Sheffield United. Right, fair. I mean, we didn't try and do anything against Leeds. At least we tried a little bit against Sheffield United. But the other 3 are Plymouth at home, where we drew 1-1, Oxford away, where we drew 1-1, and Stoke away, where we lost 2-1. Now, those are 3 teams right down at the bottom, and we didn't create a single chance against any of them. I've got a comment here from Mike saying it's silly to say he doesn't want them to go forwards. Now, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking, surely we wouldn't think something like that. And I just scrolled through Leeds' results because I remember them drawing with a team that were towards the bottom. And I was right, it was Portsmouth, another promoted team. I think it might have been the opening game of the season. And they drew 3-3 against Pompey. And I watched that game, or I watched the highlights back from that game before we started recording. And there's something that I noticed, which was the polar opposite of what Derby did. When they won the ball back, their two wingers went racing up the line because they'd play a ball over the top for them to run onto and to put Leeds on the retreat. When Derby picked up the ball yesterday, the two wingers would stay in position because they've been told to stay there. There's no way Caden Jackson and Nathaniel Mendes-Lang aren't sprinting in behind the second we get the ball unless they're being told that they shouldn't, because that is their entire game. That's what both of them do. They want to do that. They want to run in behind. They want those chances. They want to use their pace and their strength, and we didn't do it. And that's the thing that I really struggle to grasp. And that's why when Warne came out yesterday and pretty much said, I know he said at half time they went out in a not damage limitation, but then completely described what damage limitation is. But it felt like the whole game we went out with a mindset of, let's not get embarrassed here, lads. Let's go out, let's sit in, and let's do, as much as we can to make sure we don't get pumped 6-0. And as Vic said, if not for Zetterstrom, we'd have lost 4-5-0 yesterday. Even though I thought, weirdly, Vic, our back three actually played pretty well. I thought Cashin had a really good game. I thought Nelson had a good game. And I thought Nat Phillips had a really good game as well. There were a couple of times where he won some really important duels especially towards the end of the first half, where if he hadn't have done that, they'd have been cleaned through. I mean, it's weird, isn't it, that our back three plays so well, and yet it still looks like we're going to get pumped.
Yeah, I mean, the back three did play well. If there's any positive to take from yesterday, they were pretty decent. I think Leeds always knew that when Forsyth was going to start, I think they knew just to target that side, and I think that's where both goals eventually came from, if I'm correct. But yeah, it's just they played well. One thing we can pride ourselves on, well, we're supposed to pride ourselves on, is how defensively sound we are. Yes, we're leaking goals, but it's probably because we sit so deep. We might as well just put 10 players on the line at the moment. But yeah, I'd agree. I think Nat Phillips had a good, solid game. I thought Cashin had a solid game. Nels had a decent game. And I think Leeds just tactically set up to sort of target our wing backs, which they knew if they went man for man on pace, they knew they were always going to beat Forsyth. And I do feel sorry for him because he's at an age now where he probably can't play as many intense games. And unfortunately, teams that do have these pacey wing backs and wingers will target that just because they know that Fozzie can't win in a foot race. He might win in every other aspects like heading the ball and stuff, but in a foot race he's done. But yeah, the back three were decent. The wing backs were targeted, but what can you say? Leeds are a good side, and I'm trying not to sound like Paul Warne here, but I mean, I was thinking about something you said earlier about going back to the. You could clearly tell I'm rattled by the League One squad thing. Ipswich went up the year before, back-to-back promotions, with pretty much the same squad. Now, could you imagine Kieran McKenna coming out and saying this is a League One squad despite getting promoted? They could do it. Why do you not believe in your own players to actually perform and do the job that you're asking them to do? I think that's the main issue there. But going back to the back three stuff, yeah, I thought we were defensively sound, and had it not been for some good goalkeeping, the scoreline could have been worse. So even with that low block, we still could have lost 5-0. So what would his excuses have been then?
That's it. And I mean, we've got a comment saying that this is an overreaction. We've lost against a team that have Premier League quality players. We could have got battered 4 or 5. No, we could very easily. And we've just explained, from our perspective, exactly why we could have got battered 4 or 5-0, even playing the way that we played. And I think it's a great point. They've got an expensive team, a really well-assembled team, but they've also got a cohesive team. And money can't buy that. We saw it at Derby. We spent a lot of money on players and we still couldn't put together a team that would really play good football and really put teams to the sword at times. I'm thinking the Paul Clement side, especially that second half of the season where we had some unbelievable players and we couldn't do anything with them. They literally couldn't do anything because they just couldn't play together. They didn't have that balance. And I think Leeds have found that really well. But the only problem for me, and this is why, maybe it is an overreaction. You could be right, probably is. We've not played well in a long time. We've won 2 games in 14, 1 win in 10. In that run, we've played Plymouth, we've played Hull, we've played Oxford. We've played a lot of the teams that are down there, and we've not played many of the good teams. And that's what concerns me the most. Swansea at home, Sheff Wednesday at home. We played a lot of teams that are mid-table and below. And we've either just lost the game due to our own errors. We've either lost or thrown away points that we were going to win. If not, it feels like a bit of a mindset thing. And that was what worried me about Warne's comments, is that there is a little bit of a mindset problem. We have a bit of a loser's mindset. I think some within the fan base, and again, I'm not trying to cause conflict here because I know it's just been constant arguments on social media. And to be honest, I'm bored of it now. But I think there's a bit of a loser's mindset at Derby among some areas. Did we almost go bust 3 years ago? Yes, we did. Does that mean that we can't win games? No. Does that mean that we can't go into games and give them a real go and actually try and push and try and get results? No, of course not. And I think that's part of the problem for me, Callum, at the minute, is that, Warne's coming out saying, well, I've got a League One squad, what do you expect? And you've got some people coming out and going, well, we almost went bust a few years ago. We were actually in League One last year. We've not actually spent that much money. But when you go to every game and again, you play the hard-earned money card, but you pay your money, you travel, you go to the games, you're loud, you try and support the team. And what you get back is a team not even trying to attack. And a lot of the time, barely create a chance. 5 games this season, we've not even created a proper chance. It's not fun, is it? It sucks the joy out of football. And it makes you question, why do we actually do this in the first place?
Well, yeah, and it's why do yourselves, myself, go to away games, go to home games even, and if we're just going to go, so when we play Leeds on the 29th of December, no one turn up because we're just going to sit there and accept a 2-0 loss. There you go. If that's the mentality,
I've already
going
accepted it, mate.
Yeah, just no one turn up. Watch it all on the telly. It's on the telly. Just sit at home. It's nice. It's over Christmas. Just don't bother turning up because there's no point. Like, what's the point? Like, if that's the mentality we're going to go with and not even going to attack, like, and give a good account of ourselves and put the effort in the right areas. I mean, like you said, I've seen a couple of comments while you've just been both chatting and over the last 24 hours. I don't mind the comments of overreaction and stuff because I do feel Derby fans, football fans, every fan, myself, is really reactionary because that's what it is. You come out from the game and then you come on social media, you go home, you're really irate because of what you've just watched. And sometimes you can overreact. And I've been guilty of it. But my biggest thing is that, and you touched on it there, is the run of results and the run of teams that we've played, and we haven't got any better. And now we're going into a run where we've lost 3 on the bounce. You've got Burnley. Pompey's now going to be massive.
That's a must-win.
It is. You've got Luton away, who are Luton are rubbish on the road at the moment, but are really good at home. You've got West Brom. You've got Leeds. Sheffield Wednesday have already lost to. Bristol City, Watford, Sunderland. And then you're going into end of January. And then you've got Sheffield United and Norwich. Like, it's not going to get any easier. So if these are all the teams that are all going to be competing in the top 6, are we just going to go sit there and go, all right, guys, just see what we can do? We're a League One team. It's all right. And then we're coming to the end of February, and that's when we're actually going to start competing, is it? It's like...
We'll be down by then.
Exactly. It's
I'm
like...
scared.
If we're gonna continue with that mentality, even looking back to the previous sort of like post-match interviews, Warne's always got something to say about if Stoke's got a £15 million striker, Preston can spend 7 million, blah blah blah. Why are we always comparing, saying that these guys can spend? In the end, you got points out of Preston. You got points out. Even saying like Oxford is probably above us in terms of expenditure. Like, come on, the game is won on the pitch, not off it. Do you know what I mean? Okay, yeah, maybe we do need a bit of investment. Maybe Klaus will put a bit of money in if he can. It's totally up to him what he does with the investment side of it. But you've got the tools there to play decent football with decent players. This squad isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. We've got a playmaker in Kenzo. We've got fast wingers for days that you're just not playing. The only area I think we really lack is up front, and that's because it's a failure to bring in a number 9 not over this last season, last 2 or 3 seasons. Since Didsy's gone, we haven't replaced the goals. And I know they're hard to come by, but we've had pretty much a summer and about 3 transfer windows to maybe try and get a decent number 9 in. Haven't done it. it's going to bite us on the backside eventually. But if you're going to, like Callum said, if you're going to go in with that loser mentality, you're going to lose the fans. The tendencies will drop. Then all of a sudden, you will feel the pressure from the board above. I know Klaus has a really good relationship with Paul Warne. But when you come out with silly comments like League One squad, you're coming out and you're telling our team not to attack. The bare minimum any fan wants is just for a team to play full of pride, passion, and give everything for the shirt. I believe the players are doing that. I'll be honest, I think they are. And I think we've actually got a decent squad to even finish mid-table this season and beyond. And I think we've got a good foundation to build on. But if you're going to give us that loser mentality, like Callum said, what's the point? What's the point of the fans turning up? The players will just lose trust in the manager. Then what do you do then? Do you know?
I'm quite scared. I'm scared. You lot are rattled. I'm not used to you two being rattled. This isn't. I'm supposed to be rattled.
You see me rattled after most away games. So.
Yeah, that's different. Not here.
That's what I'm saying. It's the run of games. You think you've got clubs who you're going to have this conversation multiple times over the festive period. So if you're going to go into that, and we're not going to compete until maybe the odd game against Portsmouth and maybe Sheffield Wednesday, then like you said, we're going to be in the bottom three by Feb, and then we're going to start competing.
Right, lads, let's settle down.
We're already 3 points.
We're already 3 points off.
Oh my god, this has become the depression cast as predicted. Yeah, I don't think we can think like that.
I'm just looking forward to Leyton Orient. That might be a decent game we go up against. Might not be. Might not sit back on that one.
We've already lost to Barrow, but it's a challenging time, isn't it? I mean, the reaction at the end of the game I thought was quite telling. I thought the players got a really rousing reception at the end. I think they really did. All the players came over, applauded the fans, and all the fans applauded them. Warne came over and he got a lot of booing. There was a lot of booing. And the second the booing started, he stopped clapping the fans, put his hands in his pockets, head down, and walked into the tunnel. And I think his comments probably reflect a little bit of that feeling. I noticed he made possibly a little bit of a jibe at the fans and the reception that they gave at the end, right at the start of his interview with Radio Derby. And I get it. I bet he's feeling the pressure. You know, this is a man who's been relegated from this league 3 times. I'm sure he's feeling the pressure. I'm sure he's feeling, familiar feelings from the past. But the difference is that this isn't Rotherham, this is Derby. And Derby are a lot bigger. And Derby have a lot more fans. And Derby have a lot louder fans as well. When it's good, it's loud in a good way. When it's bad, it can become very toxic very quickly. And I just hope that for his sake and for Derby's sake, he can get through that period, because 1 win in 10 is awful. The way we've played has been awful. The fact we rely on a 19-year-old holding midfielder is awful. That is poor planning, poor execution. And we look like a team that's completely lost and devoid of ideas currently. Now, go to Burnley, who are not good going forwards. They've really struggled to break teams down. I think we've got a chance at a result there, probably delusionally. I think we've got a chance at a result there if we can sit in, defend well, and not make any silly mistakes like we did against Leeds. I think we could be okay. We then go to Pompey. If we get a result in that, if we win that game, suddenly everything flips on its head. You know what I mean? And that's when we talk about being reactionary. I don't think we can go too far. And I've seen a lot of people, especially in the comments, saying, how awful it is at the minute. Warne needs to go. I don't even know if Warne going is the right thing. But from my perspective, all I can think is we do need to back the team as much as we can. Because at the end of the day, we might all not be the biggest fans of Paul Warne, but we're all the biggest fans of Derby. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'd rather we stayed up with Warne in charge than we went down without him, or went down with him with a toxic mentality. Like Harry said, do you think it could get toxic at Pride Park if we don't beat Portsmouth? Yes, definitely. But I think when the game's playing, we need to keep backing the team. And I think at the start against Leeds, we really did that. And we really, really backed the team. It was hard because the main thing that makes fans sing, shout, be loud is chances and goals. And we don't do either of those things, which makes it so difficult to, get the fans going. But I think we just got to back the team. We've got to back the team. And that's my thought on it. If we keep backing the team and we keep losing, then yes, call for his head. I agree. I think a couple more defeats, especially if we lose to Pompey, especially if we lose to Luton, it probably might be time for a change, especially with January coming up. But at the same time, whilst he's here, we've got to back him and we've got to back the team, because if we go down, it'll be fun, catastrophic, enjoyable. But right, we've got 2 games coming up in the next week, Burnley and Portsmouth. I mean, we've talked about them enough already, haven't we? If you're in the comments, please give us your score predictions and goal scorers as well. It'd be really good to hear what you guys think. Can't wait to see how positive they'll be. I'm sure there'll be a good read. Callum, what are you thinking ahead of Burnley and Pompey, mate? And who do you think's going to score, if anyone, to be honest? If anyone's going to score, who do you reckon?
Yeah, tough. Well, I mean, speaking of Pompey, I mean, if you're going to see a team go to Leeds and give it their all, that when they went there, that's the kind of mentality you want to go with. So speaking of which, going to Burnley, I don't think we're going to do that. I think you're going to see exactly the same thing. I'm sorry, Vic. It's going to be a 1-0 defeat because they don't score. They'll probably score a set piece, do something like literally our Leeds did, but then we'll just sit there and the game will go. Then to the Friday, I'd like to say that we'll get a result. We need to turn the home form around because the home form's not been great either, which if you're going to stay up, you need your home form. So we need to turn that form around. So go on, let's go a 2-1 win. And I will go for Yates and Curtis Nelson in the scorers.
God, wow, that's positive, isn't it? Vic, what do you reckon, pal?
I'm really glad Callum's so optimistic.
I'm not going up it. It's all right.
I think if we play our cards right, we'll be lucky to get a 0-0 at Burnley. But like you said, all they need is 1 goal and they'll just sit back. So it's either going to be 0-0 or 1-0 to them. I don't see a positive result for us there. Moving on to Pompey, it's a massive game. It's a relegation 6-pointer when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. I want to try and be positive, and I'm going to say we're going to try and nick it 1-0. Mendes Lang to get the winner and go up to Warne and be like, play me on the right hand side when he scores and celebrates. But nah. I think we'll get a 1-0 win at Pompey. I think I'm just trying to be positive. I just want us to try and get a result there because I know how important it is for us. And I just want to reiterate that we're not actually saying the players aren't putting the effort in. The players are giving everything, and we can only appreciate that as well. So I know it's been a bit of a negative podcast towards Warne, but on the flip side of it, I just want to say to the players, thank you for all the efforts you are putting in. And it's not against you. It's just the way this has turned out. So,
but please pass to each other more. That would be really nice.
Pass forward. Just pass forward.
Yeah, I think we manifest this into existence. Derby are going to go unbeaten this week, in my view. But before we go on to that, let's read some of the score predictions out. People have done them separately, which has made my life very difficult. Jim Johnson says Burnley to beat us 3-0. I don't think they've scored 3 goals in a game all season, but they're going to beat us 3-0. And then we're going to draw 1-1 with Portsmouth. Ben Boocock, who knows all about losing, being a Burton fan, says it's going to be 2-0 to Burnley. Derby going to have 3 shots of the game not on target. I like that. Harry Hammond says 2-0 against Burnley and then a 1-0 Derby win against Pompey, which I think most people will probably take. Infernal's put 1-1 versus Burnley with Tom scoring, and then 2-0 versus Pompey. Yates Nelson scoring. That'd be all right. Jack says it's going to be 1-0 Derby. Own goal against Burnley. Peter Kerr says we're going to lose to Burnley 2-0, beat Portsmouth 1-0. FSD is pretty similar boat. He thinks Burnley are going to win 2-0, Portsmouth win 2-1. The guy with a name that I genuinely don't know how you meant to say it, as per that we're going to lose 3-0 against Burnley, won't have a shot. That's harsh. We might have one for 40 yards. And he thinks that we'll beat Pompey 2-1 as well. And mine, you know what? Going to manifest it. 0-0 versus Burnley. I think we're going to hold out. We're going to grind out a draw in true Paul Warne style. And then we're going to go to Pompey. They're going to go 1-0 up. And then we're going to pull 2 goals back at the end. Tom Barkhazen's going to score a tap in from about 2 yards from a hardest cross. And then there's going to be a thunderbolt from 25 yards from Liam Thompson, just like he did in the Cup last season, right in the top corner. Was it this season? I don't even know anymore, mate. But he's going to put one in the top corner regardless. And Derby are going to wheel away with 3 vital points.
And then he wakes up from his dream.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up from his dream.
Yeah, the daydream ends and he sees Burnley's 5th at the back of the net. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a tough time, isn't it? Let's stick together. Let's not fire abuse at each other. Let's not be silly. Let's all stick together and we'll get out of this the other side. I'm sure we will. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Please do rate us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Pods if you listen on there. Please leave a comment on any platform. Let us know your thoughts on the stuff we've discussed today. If we overreacted, if we underreacted, I don't think that's possible, but yeah, just let us know what's happened and how you feel about it. And yeah, it'd be really good to gauge people's thoughts on this as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back with a preview tomorrow for Burnley and then again for Pompey. And then we'll be back next Sunday, ready to talk about 4 vital points that we've won. Definitely not in my dream. So it's a goodbye from me.
Do more KMs, Jamie. Goodbye from me.
Whatever you feel about the manager, let's completely back the players 100% from minute 1 to minute 90. Let's go. Goodbye from me.
Up the Rams. Can't wait for Victor Boo at half time on Tuesday. See you later.
I'll be down the M6 by then.